No, right when you get up.
Okay.
Just sign in.
I mean, you can sign in now if you
Yeah,
want.
doesn't hurt.
Then you don't have to do it then.
Yeah, one less thing to worry about.
I just rubber stamped it, buddy. I'll be honest.
I get. to order. Start with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We have the approval of the October 15th minutes. We have a motion to accept them as submitted.
I'll make it.
Second,
Seconded?
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And the approval of the October 16th special meeting. We have a motion to accept those as submitted.
I'll make a motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. We have public comment. Is there anybody that would wish to speak? Sure.
My name is Lorraine Davila. My girls are Emily and Cookie Richards. And I wanted to thank you for hosting a wonderful dinner for them. I also wanted to say I was so glad that you recognized Corey, because whether I was homeschooling or now that the girls are in public school, she always did go above and beyond helping us. Made the transition from homeschooling to public school smooth. The only recommendation I would have, if you can make a note somewhere, at the end when we were cleaning up, there were lots of plastic bottles going in the trash. My 4-H group is working on the environment, and so of course it's on my mind right now, and I thought if we can make a note, and the girls played soccer, so we were outside, so I don't come into many indoor things, but I didn't know, I'm assuming you have a recycling bin in the lunchroom?
We do.
Yes.
Yeah, if we can bring those to indoor events, not only is it good for the environment, 6 cents a bottle adds up if we take them to Big M. I don't know if you have a student body that would do that or how you would handle getting that money, but it's money.
Right.
And I think that was it. That was it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do I have to do this?
Do you want her to? I know, okay. Is there anybody else?
Good evening, members of the board. In case you don't know who I am, my name is Ian Clerkin, and I'm a 4th grade teacher who just started his 5th year here at Walton. As I've taught at Walton, I've moved up the ranks in terms of coaching. I started off as a volunteer, and Kelly Gates welcomed me aboard, giving me control of her long-distance athletes training. As the years progressed, I moved on to a more permanent role as an assistant coach. In my years of being assistant, I have trained the same number of athletes while also simultaneously coaching the modified track team. As my responsibilities increased, so has my love for the sport of track. I've had somewhat of a history of running, having 4 years of high school running, cross country, indoor and outdoor, and some collegiate running under my belt. Now that I'm past my prime, I want to give my athletes as much, if not more success than I've seen. This leads to one of the topics that you, the board, has discussed. I fully understand the board's stance on wanting to get proposals for teams and clubs by December of the previous year. I agree that this would give you time to mull over the details, giving a thought to everything involved. I will definitely be doing that for the 2020-2021 indoor track team. As for the situation that we are in now, a lot of things have changed before the start of spring track the last year. At the end of last year, December 2019, I was still an assistant coach. Kelly Gates was still head coach. And I didn't have our assistant coach, Rich Michalski, in the picture. Had we known that I would be head coach, Kelly would be leaving, and Rich would be working with us, we would have definitely put this plan for an indoor team in motion by last December. With all these changes taking place, I feel like this is an unusual circumstance that would require a different perspective to be drawn. I also understand the concern of setting a precedent for other individuals to come forward and have similar requests. Ultimately, I looked at 2 things that make this request stand out from other ones. The first, that there is such a high demand, 34 athletes, with many of our female students getting a chance to compete in a season that only offers basketball. In case you weren't aware, we only had 8 girls come out for the team last year. We had a good season, but we were never competitive in the team standings because we competed against teams with double to triple the number of girls on the team. On this interest list, we have 16 girls. That's double the amount that came out in the spring. With wrestling and basketball being the only sports offered in the winter season, providing students with another opportunity to succeed seems to be the best choice for our students' well-being. Our athletes want to compete. They want to race, to try to beat their best times in an event. By having an indoor team, they have that chance. Not to mention, it will help their spring track season immensely. I was kind of curious to see how much of an impact indoor track had on outdoor track success. So I took results from last season's state qual meet. Basically, you need to finish in the front to go on to states. So it's a very competitive meet. I went through the results and highlighted all the athletes that competed in both indoor and outdoor track. Over 75% of the athletes I saw competed in both indoor and outdoor track. So there is a correlation between the best athletes and those that are competing in both seasons. The second part that stands out to me is the fact that due to the change in staffing, shortly before our outdoor track started last school year, the possibility to bring back indoor track wasn't even thought of. You might think that saying no for this year, but doing indoor for the 2020-2021 season might be a good decision, but I think of who is on our team. We have 7 seniors. There is no next year for them. I have an athlete come up to me who mentioned that during the recruiting process, college coaches are asking for his indoor performances. He doesn't have any. This is hampering his recruiting process. It's very hard to be competitive in the MAC League if we are only one of 2 schools that don't have an indoor team. With that in mind, we were able to do a whole lot last year. We set the first school record since 2012. Just to put things in perspective, when Rich was coaching from 2009 to 2012, 19 records were broken in that time period. To go from 19 in a span of 4 years to having no records the next 6 years speaks volumes to where this program was, where it's going currently, and where we have our sights set on now. We set 5 boys to state quals. The boys placed the highest I have ever seen since I have been here, finishing in 3rd at both MAC champs and sectionals. A lot of this success I attribute to having my assistant coach, Rich, come out of coaching retirement to bring this team back to the success that it had when he was the head coach here. In case you don't know, he has over 40 years of coaching experience. He's 5th on the New York State all-time list for boys coaches wins. He has even coached numerous state champions. If you were wondering how some of our athletes can compete in both basketball and track, indoor track is an exception because you could do both at the same time. As for meets, we only have 1 Friday meet to worry about a conflict with other games. The Saturday meets are even staggered so that we can go to the 9 o'clock, the 1 o'clock, or even the 4 o'clock meet. Practices can be staggered, with me taking the students that don't have basketball right after school, and then Rich taking the ones who will be practicing later. Obviously, we will take into account how hard their basketball practice was, as well as any upcoming games, and we will be sure not to overtrain them. Practices would be outside whenever possible, but due to inclement weather, we wouldn't have an issue with gym space because we use the hallways, the stairwells, and the weightlifting gym. With all these circumstances in mind, I hope that you will ultimately come back to what is best for our students when you make your decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Board time. Do we have any students here for government class or anything?
Yes.
Would you like to just introduce yourselves?
My name is Mara Little. Hi.
Hi.
My name is Celestine Mingle. Are you guys here for government?
Anybody else?
Roy?
Oh, yes, I'm Roy.
Okay. Just make sure you have your paper signed, if you have any. They still need the signature, you know? Okay. Do you have any? Or even the agenda. We can sign the agenda.
Oh, okay.
for you.
There's just not a spot, I don't think.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we are up to discussion items. Okay, and the first thing on our discussion, I didn't skip any, no, is winter sports and cheerleading. Everyone has the packet that was put together with the superintendent's recommendations. Is there any?
We'd make a motion for any new approvals that would be under new business, or would it be done during discussion? Because under new business, I would like to make a motion to consider winter sports, indoor track to be reinstated here this year.
I personally, I think we should take into consideration the December request date, putting it forward to the following year. Not only was winter track eliminated, there was other sports eliminated as well, and I don't think it would be fair for us to proceed with one and then possibly develop a policy going forward like you had suggested, and then turning down the other ones such as cheerleading and the rest of them. I understand that there's a benefit to it, but there is a benefit to people that were doing golf, bowling, tennis as well, and I think we need to take all that into consideration. And being fiscally responsible, I mean, I understand that we are here for the students, but we also have to be fiscally responsible. We had set our budget based on what we could afford, and then just like Mr. Crooken had said, there had changes that had taken place, and we made quite a few adjustments, you know, this year as well, to take into the consideration those changes.
So to elaborate on what I was saying, I think is winter sports, you have a track program that's established here. Some of the other programs have not been established. You have very few opportunities for female competitors during the winter time. I believe they've laid out a pretty good case for why this is extenuating and why we should look at it as a one-time going forward to say we would approve indoor track this year and set the guidance for before December 31st of every year to build a new budget, that be in place moving forward. But I think we wouldn't be doing our service here, knowing how we stand physically and things like that. We can handle putting on an indoor winter track. There's not a lot of expense to it. They're well organized. The team is motivated. You have people that want to compete in states that have stepped up to do that. And I don't want to sit here and deny opportunities for athletes, especially when we have that many interested. You've doubled your interest in female athletes that only have one sport to compete in the winter. So with all that in mind, I really think this is a one-time, yes, approve it. Let the administration figure out what capacity it's approved at to have them be able to compete and set the guidance for in the future. We would like all these sports to come forward before December 31st unless there are extenuating circumstances to be moved.
See, that the second part of that is, and I agree that I would love, I mean, if my son were sitting out there, you know, it would be, I'd have to consider it the same way and sit here and think about what it means fiscally. And like you said, consider it this one time, but then devise a policy saying that we're going to adhere to a December 31st cutoff. And then after that, also consider if there are extenuating circumstances. There's no such thing as a one-time exception. There's exceptions, or there's the policy. And the reason we have it, and I understand everything you said, and I appreciate all the time and thought and consideration that went into the case that you laid out for it. But the reason the board wants these things ahead of time, just like we couldn't reverse the ticket taking or anything like that, despite the fact I personally feel like it does a disservice and may discourage certain people from coming to those events, was because it wasn't taken into consideration when we prepared the budget. I mean, I am just saying if we decide to move forward with indoor track, then we have to be prepared to deal with more exceptions.
And not just sports, but clubs, things like that. Barney, your thoughts?
It's a tough one, but I kind of, unfortunately, lean more toward Graydon's, I should say unfortunately, stance on that. I'd like to see it. I know it is tough for the girls. My oldest, when she wasn't interested in basketball, I think would have done the track. In fact, when she was on, I think the spring league with Bryn Backus, Madison LaBarge, and Emma, they consistently got better, and ended up qualifying for a meet, and it was pretty neat to see. So if there's any way we can do without breaking the bank, I would like to see, even though it is an exception and we're going against things, I think they stated a very good case, and I know Rich was very much so. In fact, he even told me if it came down to it, he would volunteer his time to help the kids. So as we know, volunteerism is pretty hard to come by, so it was pretty nice of Rich to even offer such a thing.
Well, I'm back to the budget again. We do a budget for a reason, and we plan for those funds to be spent as they're allocated. And I don't see how you can all of a sudden find money for something else. That's my opinion.
The thing that I'm struggling with this is I'm trying to scan through these, and I see there's values put to certain things. But where's the travel for this? Where do they compete? Am I overlooking that? Where do these events take place?
Ithaca, Cortland, is that?
So nothing is local, and we can't do anything locally in our own school, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I see the registration fees and stuff like that. There's fees in here that I'm not seeing, unless I could be overlooking them. I don't think transportation and that type of stuff. So I guess my issue with it is I don't have a bottom line. So agreeance in not wanting to break the bank, I would agree with Artie in that for sure, but I don't know what that value is, and I don't know what this costs. I mean, so
Well,
I think,
And we don't know what's gonna come forward neither and what that cost is going to be
right.
for other.
But for this
sports or-
specific one that we're
Right.
considering now, the overall dollar the anticipated impact on the budget is unknown. We do have registration numbers, but the transportation was a key element that.
So weren't there a couple different options on either transport, non-transport, things of that nature within these proposals? I mean, was there an option for self-transport to these as a group, or is there not?
I don't think we have self-transport in any of our other sports
No.
events. I think everything is school transport. The only thing we have is students can sign out and go with guardians or,
After
After the
sporting
event. right, no, I'm just,
Yeah.
I don't think there's,
What was our total budget projected? What would be the total impact on the budget with this? Final numbers.
We don't have final numbers.
I guess that's kind of my point, is I don't know what you,
We don't have the
Would
coaches'
approve.
salaries, transportation.
Coaching salaries would fall under the new contract. So those coaching salaries for the new, I'm assuming would fall under the new contract since the teachers are close to having an agreement on there.
Mhm.
And there's a new schedule in place with respect to head coaches and assistant coaches. But I'm gonna ballpark, if you don't mind, I can ballpark that at probably somewhere in the, given one full-time, one head coach and one assistant coach, I think I can ballpark that somewhere around the $8,000 figure for step one, first time through.
And that's for both?
I think that's combined with the two.
And transportation, with the dates of the meets and things like that, that you've coordinated that and you have availability for transportation?
I had given it to Meg.
Okay.
Exact numbers. Done enough of them that I couldn't hurry up with the exact number for you. But
Okay. No, that's,
all right,
Alright,
so we're at 8,000, roughly 8,000 plus.
We'd be roughly talking about Again, I'm guessing.
I'm understanding that.
But you'd be probably talking between Tracy, 6 and 8 hours of a driver on events.
At least that,
I said it'd have to be more than that, right?
at least that.
Ithaca and stuff like that, it's not just around the corner with a,
And then I'm not sure about what the miles are between from those areas.
so,
For the transportation, they'd come up with 8 trips. This doesn't include any extra sectional or whatever they do for the end. 4 trips to one destination, another one was 8 hours, 4 trips at 8 hours, 4 trips at 12 hours. Then we have all the other little extra things that go in there with the driver's contract, you know, per meal or whatever. And it was right at, well, $3,500.
So we're at 11.5, and then registration.
so what was ticket sales?
12,000.
We can't afford to take a $12,000 hit to our budget so that our people can come in and watch sporting events, but we can take a $12,000 hit to create another sporting event.
I don't believe that's the case. I don't believe that's the case. I believe the principle was it was budgeted for the 12,000 as revenue, because the auditor in the last 2 years has said you're over your balance, what the state recommends going forward with unallocated fund balances. So I don't think it's a matter of the 12,000, can you afford it? It was a matter of the principle of it was revenue figured into the budget for paying those individuals, which then you have to find somewhere else to be able to pull in to make it whole.
Right, but keep in mind with that, being over fund balance, we have one special needs student come in and need special services or special transportation that eat that right up.
Yeah, I'm not. My point was it was more principle than it isn't the dollar necessarily as much as was the
because
principle.
the 12,000 is already budgeted as revenue. So we are expecting that where we didn't put that out to the tax levy. That is revenue that we expect to come in. So if we don't include that, then our revenues could be short because the levy was not budgeted for that.
Well, I think from my perspective, we spend a lot of time on policies, stuff like that. I'm for supporting the students, but I also, you gotta be careful what time you open the door for what events, and then next time, I mean, we have a proposal also for cheerleading. $12,000, I think, is something that you'd be, there's no sense in having rules if you don't abide by them. And since we set them in place, I think we need to abide by them and not grant that this year, put it in the budget next year, and see what else comes forward in the December times, and have a program that can be counted on running. But then there is none of this, you can't ever be accused of doing any, because it's this person or because of this club, you did it, and you cut this club. I mean, I think there needs to be a level of consistencies across the board, and the only way to do that is to do it.
Are there booster programs for our track? Is there a booster club track program?
I don't believe
So our track team really is the only club we have that's really not booster supported. And that's another piece of
I don't
reason
think
why.
there's ever been a request or interest in booster track. I mean, we
So-
picked up field hockey, you know, over the last few years, but.
So my point is they're in extenuating circumstances that they described. They don't have a booster filler program. They've seen numbers double just in this request. And this basically is a replacement of a booster program going forward into your track season to build a successful program. I don't think we should turn away from this from the students.
Our current policy says 12/31.
No, we don't have a policy on
We
that.
don't have a
Okay,
policy.
We don't have a policy.
Right, that's what I wasn't sure
That
of,
was,
so we don't have a
That
policy.
was,
we do not.
the
It's something we're-
superintendent's recommendation.
Okay,
In case,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
because we don't know what else is gonna come forward, and that was his recommendation.
right.
So
So
currently,
we don't have anything
No.
to lean on right now,
we do
so.
not.
So if, Graydon hadn't made a motion to take it into new business, is there a second to do that? Do you need a second right now, or just?
When we
bring
get
it-
to new business.
Okay, we'll do that in new business, all right. All right, we discussed ticket sales, and, we're kind of bringing that back, just for the fact that the 12,746, was the revenue, and I think that we were bringing that back for information purposes, because, there was a couple board members that were not here.
Yeah, I wasn't here.
So that
I
includes
I
that.
saw that, but thank you.
New York State School Boards, Conference in Rochester. For those that did not attend, there was quite a few, good, training events. One of them that I remember right offhand, and I thought it was, very touching, was, the trauma-informed schools. And we're gearing towards that, and what a student, or students could be going through at a home level or a personal level, and what that impact has when they come to school, and if other staff members are not aware of it, or other people are not aware of it, the burden that those students carry. And that, I believe did you go with me, or
Yes.
Miranda? To listen to this woman read this story about an individual, and you think, oh my gosh, how could a child live through that and then go to school every single day and nobody know this? And that child was her, and she went on to become a therapist, and does speaking at these events, and it was amazing. It was very touching. The other one, data used for accountability and student achievement. I found that very interesting. And any of the sessions that you've seen in the paperwork, if there's something that you wanted to, more information on, I had the app and I can print them off, so I did, they don't hand out printed copies, you just, download the app now and you just read it from there, so I found it very interesting, which I usually, I pick up quite a bit from it, and I'm trying to think, we touched on superintendent interviewing and designing a successful capital project, so those are things that we're actually, gearing up for, so they were informative.
I think Marilyn went to a nice one.
Yes, I went to the one on, they called it a STEAM presentation. And it had to do with children learning hands-on, that they do a 3 hours course in the morning. And the students go in and the one example they gave was the one girl decided she wanted to be Harriet Beecher Stowe. And she went in and had to research, find all the information she could about her. Then all that information had to be put into a time capsule. She had to build her time capsule. She built it out of wood. She had to make sure it was waterproof, that it could withstand the elements. And then they had to do a report on the whole thing,
And this is all in different classes, like the English class is working on.
Well, they all work in
research
that 3 hour time block. But it covers English, it covers history, it covers building and figuring out how to do something. And so I think it would be something we should look into, because it teaches hands-on, and they did this, they started in the 8th grade, and they went backward with it, so that the younger kids were exposed to it, which I think is a wonderful thing, because little kids are the ones that need their mind and hands stimulated.
Was that a program that they were?
It's a program.
It's a specific program that's available for?
Available through BOCES, and it is, well.
They developed it.
Yeah, they developed it.
Okay.
Yeah, they're grassroots.
And it's, well, this school was out in Geneseo, And it's a very small school, 600 students. And they've been very satisfied with it.
And to see the students there, they had them with their projects, and they would go
They
over.
were from the Geneseo school?
Yes.
And they were there with their projects going over it, and like you're saying, back from the time when they're ink pens, they had to do the projects with and stuff. I mean, they
Well,
really
they-
took them back and,
The
you know.
kind
they-
of paper they used to write on had to be to the time period.
Oh, wow.
It was quite
It
a,
was quite involved.
Which I always think, so be working with their hands pretty good. I don't know if you know what I do or not. But kind of handy. I can see a lot of benefit in
Yeah.
that, so.
so,
He was Tracy's science teacher.
Oh, really?
Yeah. he's been-
Marilyn, do you have an update on the curriculum committee that was held October 21st? And sorry that I missed that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you did too. I met with Jane O'Shea, and she explained how they're doing with their literacy, how they're doing the evaluations. She gave me a charts she did up that, fingers don't work, but they show that it's called an impact report. And we have a baseline of where the students are now. And in the winter, this baseline will be updated again to see how much progress is being made or where it is or isn't being made. She did tell me too that Walton School right now is number 10 in the southern tier as far as reading goes, which is pretty good because we weren't there a while ago. Each of the students are evaluated, and the evaluation, she said, takes a minute now as opposed to an hour, half an hour, 45 minutes. They can test a child in a minute, and then they will go back and retest the child again. Now, I don't know how you can test a child in a minute, but Jane says you can, and it works, so. She did show me how they did a report on just the 10th grade, testing their reading levels. And we have one student in 10th grade that's reading on a 3rd grade level. There were several other students that were in the 7th grade level, 5th grade level.
So they had, I'm sorry, so the reading teachers in the Townsend School, if I understood it, have already tested 153 students.
One reading
Thus far
teacher
this year.
has, yes. So that's what she's mainly focusing on right now is literacy, the reading mainly. They're going back to phonics now, which I had phonics when I was in school, and then it went away. And so they're getting back to that because she gave me an example of if I say to you, pocket, what do you see, the word or the object? She wants us to see the word, our kids to see the word, which I goofed up on because I saw my pocket. So, but she's got a very good program going as far as I'm concerned. She knows what direction she wants to go in and what direction we need to go in. So I was very impressed.
Very nice, thank you. From the conference and attending one of the focusing on competence and developing superintendent interviewing questions brings us to our superintendent search. Although we would love to hold off on that a couple of years, that's not the case. Somebody would like to enjoy their retirement. But we need to know in what direction do we want to take this? Do we want to go out for RFPs and possibly hire a company to do that search, or do we want to go through our BOCES? And they offer that service to our schools. So.
Do we have
Can
any
we-
data on like effectiveness of placements or anything like that? I mean, obviously, I know we have gone through BOCES before, but we also had a New York State School Board educational
Yep.
program where they talked about possibly the benefit of going with kind of a consultancy to find the best fit for the school's culture and things like that. I don't know.
Through this training, there was two individuals there that went through a superintendent search, and from what I gathered out of it, and I think there was a couple of us in there, so somebody might have, seen something else, but you can go out for RFPs and you can hire a company that does this. And they kind of go about the same process that you set forward, whether you want to keep the individual or the applicants confidential, because a lot of people, what they found was through BOCES or a hired service, the applicants don't want their name out there. Because if they put their name out there and then they don't get hired, that school district that they're currently employed in, you get ill feelings, and so they kind of hold back from applying. Where a confidential search, both of them had said that the number of applicants had, doubled. The downside of what I gathered from going with a company is there's no guarantee, you pay the service, but there's no guarantee that you're gonna approve an individual, that you're gonna receive a superintendent out of that search, and you may end up having to go back out again.
And the
Same thing
service
with BOCES,
fees,
though.
service fees are approximately 20 to 40,000?
The one that they mentioned there was like 15 to 20,000 that they were.
So it's have BOCES do it for free or pay a consultant $20,000 for a non-guaranteed result. I mean,
To me, I
that's
think-
where we're at.
One of the things that, I almost wonder if we shouldn't sit down with BOCES and have a conversation and just
Well, that's
clarify.
what I wanted to, I wanted to know which way we wanted to go first, and then sit down and discuss what our.
Well, I don't necessarily, I don't necessarily know if I want to just say slam dunk because it's free, go with BOCES. But I think we ought to sit down and have the conversation and make sure that we're comfortable with what they can offer.
I'd like to know
because
their process and how it might
Right.
at least get an understanding of that, how comprehensive their search process is. And hear from people who, I would imagine that BOCES here and have experience placing superintendents locally, so maybe hear from some other school boards to see what their experience was with it.
So I can contact Mr. Perry tomorrow and see what availability.
Perry Dewey,
Perry Dewey.
Mr. Dewey.
Mr. Dewey. And see what his availability.
My wife does the same
I
thing.
know.
Become the music teacher.
But I think the
See
biggest
what
thing,
his availability, and have him come to.
Can he do a confidential search?
Well, that's what we'll ask him and confirm that.
and I think that from what I've seen up there and listened to different people talk about the searches they have done, and both presentations that were on that, the superintendent that they hired was in the room. And I'd asked both of them if any of them had taken a statistic on how many would have not applied if it was not confidential. And each time the superintendent, neither school had done that, but the superintendent had commented that they would have not applied. And a thought that the superintendent brought up that I hadn't never considered, the one superintendent had went from a neighboring school that was only less than 50 miles away, who was in the middle of a capital project vote. So you think about that school district, if that had become public that he was looking, what that may have done to the local school on that vote. You know, so I mean, it goes, that swings both ways. But I definitely think, I didn't see any negativity on doing a confidential search.
I have no, whether it's confidential or not confidential, doesn't matter to me if it's gonna expand the candidate pool, and potentially get us, a better group, then I would absolutely go confidential.
All right, so I'll reach out to him tomorrow and see what we can set up. All right, policy committee. Met last night.
Yeah, I want to say.
Right.
Does somebody want to give a brief?
I think that would be great.
You can volunteer?
The policy committee met last night. Thank goodness staff was there to entertain me. The 9,000s were reviewed, which is our final chapter in the policies. The recommendations were made to accept staff's basically changes and highlights to the 9,000s with very little comment. They were, I believe, revised today and sent back out as the 9,000. So we're at the end of the big book at this point. All the chapters have been reviewed and have gone through the policy committee. So Paul will have a long list to read at the next meeting for our first reading, once again, for not being there last night.
So that's the reason I would get to read.
To be continuous. So we are finally there with that. The rest of the process is we still are on track to adopt and have them effective as of January 2020. So that policy committee has done an excellent job. Staff that's been involved have done an excellent job with it. A lot of those comprehensive parts of that policy are reviewed by staff because they're, quite frankly, on the ground floor with a lot of those, and a lot of those are very intense, and we don't have the expertise in all those areas. So staff did an excellent job, great back and forth. We've also worked with, Corey's done extensive work on those and really headed up the whole process, thank goodness, and kept us organized. So we're there, we're on time with them. We crunched through, so good job with everybody that was involved in that. And we look forward to having those adopted in January 2020 as a comprehensive set.
All right. And facilities, they met this evening. So some of you have been here since 5.
Facilities had a good update. We're looking at a couple different, actually 3 different projects right now. We're just trying to finalize that. I think we're getting real close to bringing stuff to the board table. We're looking at some flood mitigations that we're going to be able to do hopefully at Townsend. If everything goes the way we're looking for it to go, it'll have actually no local shared taxpayer dollars in that. That'll be all grant funded. And then we've just been reviewing and looking at updates here at the school with to help with our energy costs and things like that, which are funded again, and capital project. So we've not forgot about the parking lots and the roofs and the buildings. We do understand it's been a while since we've addressed those things from one reason or another, it seems like, but we are trying to everything comes together the way it's looking like it'll come together probably next year. Within next 8 months, it's going to be a lot of information hitting the street for people to digest and either give us a go ahead or not.
Yeah, and we really have taken facilities gets a hard look every 5 years. Your engineer comes in and does a mandate. They look at all your facilities, all your buildings, and where everything's at, and they rank it out based on cost of replacement and things like that to make decisions. Over the last 2.5 years, we've worked very hard to pare it down to really what it looks like is 3 potential types of projects. Energy performance contract, which really looks at your lighting, your controls, saving energy. That goes out to a third party that actually bids on those services for replacing all these, and they actually make money back within 18 years. It pays back, so the district doesn't have to outlay those funds. They get the job gets done, gets paid for by the third entity, and they recoup their costs through that 18-year time span. So that's very good for the district to update a lot of their controls, lighting, things like that. Heating systems also can be looked at, and insulation values. So that's one type of project. The flood mitigation project at Townsend, we talked about making Townsend dry flood proof, which means we're not allowing the floodwaters to go through Townsend, and sealing that up. Has been designed. It's under review right now, and CWC, Catskill Watershed Corporation, is looking at that. We're going to go to them with grant funding, hopefully within the next month, to have an idea of where that stands and sorts out. But very complicated project, high dollar cost. It's right around $1 million, 1.1 million. And we're looking to try to secure all outside grant funding, like Kevin said, to bring that to fruition. And then the third part is we just have to do general maintenance on the buildings, and we pared that huge list down to what do we really have to look at and focus on. And really, it's just like your house. if your roof's leaking, you have to start with the roof. So we know we have some roofs that are out of warranty, must be middle school roof. So we looked at that. Our parking lots, we get more comments on our parking lots. Everybody drives over them. They've been patched, they've been piecemealed, they've been been held together with bubble gum for years. Something has to be done about them.
Sidewalk?
Sidewalks would be replaced at the same time. So we've taken a real hard look at what do we actually need, because long-term projections are when your debt service comes off, you can have a large capital project, but it's like 10 years out without impacting taxes. If that makes sense to everybody, is we have a debt load that's here, as that comes down through the next 10 years, all of a sudden 10 years out, to maintain that level tax base, you can have a large project and not affect your taxes. So we have to have some of these feeder projects to get us to that 10 years so our roof doesn't come in, or we have leaks or have major issues with parking lots and things like that. So the facilities committee has really put together a comprehensive look with our architects and engineers, with Larry's guidance. Has really put together a comprehensive list. I think we've pared it down to 3 reasonable things that we want to move forward within the next year to try to come to fruition.
No, exactly, and they are, one of the goals that we've held on tight to is no tax increases with these projects. So we've had to have a debt coming off. So I mean, we've really,
And then
that's one of the things that's taken so long.
establishing the capital reserve.
Right, is to get things to work out, that we're trying to hold that line.
Forward. Okay, Finance Committee, we are scheduled to meet on Thursday, November 14th at 5:30. As a reminder. And we are up to correspondent information. There is a workers' comp meeting, Self-Alliance, held Friday, November 15th at 6:30. That is in Binghamton. I plan on attending. If there's anybody else that would like to attend, you can let Corey know.
I need to RSVP Friday.
Okay, so.
Nay.
No.
Do you want somebody to ride with you and listen?
It's up
I
to you.
can ride and listen.
All right. I note it down.
Alrighty, and I think that's all we had on that, right? Yes. Okay, we are up to additions to the agenda.
We are going to add a consent agenda item number 7F. Personnel unpaid leave of absence. We had 2 requests, one from Nancy Howard and one from Shirley Brown.
Okay. All right, so our consent agenda, we have a couple of finance reports, the claims logs. We have a resignation from Rebecca Hoover, or Halstead, I'm sorry. Halstead, November 8th, effective November 8th. We have personnel appointments. Deborah Cole as a volunteer for the Townsend Elementary School. Joanne Furman, substitute teacher aide, substitute school monitor, and substitute typist. And we have Samantha Ladd, substitute teacher aide and substitute school monitor. And Linda Bissett, is it? Substitute teacher. Personnel athletic recommendations. And I believe that is it.
And then the 2 new.
And then the request, the 7F, request for unpaid leave, Nancy Howard and Shirley Brown. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, under new business, we have some donations. We have $100 from Switzer Engineering Laboratories. No, Schweitzer, right?
Schweitzer, right.
To the O'Neill High School to inspire a lifelong love of learning in math and science. This donation replaces the donation to the Student Council that was accepted October 15th. And then we have $132 from Zotis to the Walton FFA. Do we have a motion to accept those donations?
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are back to new business for the, track request.
I just have one question before we, when is the absolute deadline that you need to know about this? We have a meeting on November 19th. What I'm reluctant to do is have a vote when we have an unknown number. I know Tracy provided I mean, if we had a bottom line, that would be more helpful. I think and that's the only reason I'm asking. So, I mean, I hate to kick this again, but I wasn't at the last meeting. We've got some registration numbers. Tracy said 3,500. We didn't know about miles. I think
We were given 3 options under our discussion for, as far as I know, I have information on 3 options for a track type team. One being an actual full-blown winter indoor track. I agree that there's not here's a dollar sign on it. They have costs broken in for registration and things like that.
Right.
Event approximately $2 a race per student, and coaches pay. We don't know exact numbers on coaches pay, things of that nature, or trips. So if we had a bottom line on that, that would be very helpful.
Right.
But I think the question really, if we can ask for clarification from staff here to say, when is the time frame? I know you probably need this yesterday, for Meet the Coaches night, but.
I mean, winter sports start next Monday, and then last year, the first meet was December 1st. So it would be around that.
So that doesn't make it winter scheduling.
It's later this year? Okay.
It's much later.
Wasn't it one of the?
Because that's one of the things I have a hard time with. I mean, as we consider things that are going to be an impact to the budget, I appreciate it. There's going to be like a tolerance around it, but not having a hard dollar number on this, it's kind of open-ended with.
Well, I understand the dollar figure, but I'm also I'm considering other people coming forward too, not just this one unusual circumstances. And like I said, we had a request for cheerleading. We have not heard back on that as far as what that cost is going to be. And then if there's anything else that comes forward in the future, I'm stuck there.
Yeah, I mean, this is an organized team with my point was for your varsity teams, a lot of them have a booster type program. Track doesn't have a booster type program. These guys are being very proactive, I believe, in getting all the numbers and all this organization done ahead of time to be able to tell us that there is interest. If there wasn't interest, they wouldn't be here. There's a ton of interest into it. This looks into a feeder program they're trying to build for the future. We don't have a policy that prohibits us any way, shape, or form from this. We don't have a policy on it at all, which was my point at the last meeting. I think this is a one-off.
And we can't develop a policy, I don't think, afterwards neither, unless we're going to do it, set it now.
So the policies, we obviously just developed a whole brand new book of policies that we didn't have. We can develop policies as a governing body at any point in time. So I think that with this, you can say, we would approve this and go forward with it as a one-time, we understand your hardships on this and why it couldn't be formulated last year. Approve this, you're organized, ready to go. We don't want to hold you back. Have our policy for budgeting. We can amend the policy for budgeting to say any new and all clubs and teams to be considered for your next fiscal year have to come in by this date, which we don't have. If we had that, then it would have put the onus on coaches last year, whether they're here or not, to say, hey, do we want an indoor track program for next year?
Are you talking effective this December?
I'm saying we can develop the policy at any point to do that and give that time deadline to say, we would like to have, in order for this board to consider applications for new clubs and or new organizations, it needs to be in by this date. That can be formed. We can do that at any of our meetings and develop that policy language. It doesn't have to be done prior to this December 31st. The guidance would be ideal to come out ahead of that. So November would be a good timing for that in order for people to put it on your plate to consider for budgeting. Ultimately, your decision would come at the budget time no matter what, I would assume. But at least it would put them on a time clock to say, submit this, and December 31st may not be the number either, because you're developing budgets up until May when it gets approved, so.
Right,
what
I
you
think
want is
that
the
it would be
information.
later, and it would
Yeah.
come from some of those workshops and things that we do as interest is exhibited, things like that.
So the policy will be written around when do you want the information to develop your budget as that guidance, and that would set your number for that 31st. I guess it was a number that was thrown out there, but whenever that would be, it would. I just think
So what
that,
is the pleasure of the board? We had a motion. Is there a second?
Next question, are we going, if we go with that, are you gonna add the cheerleading, give that a stamp too?
Well, we're just,
they didn't have a request in, I mean, as far as
well, they had
organization
a
numbers,
request first, right?
do we have numbers on those? Here you have standing athletes meets that can be set up, things of that nature. They have uniforms, they have coaches lined up. Just think they're in a different developmental stage.
Are we, you had talked about waiting, but I think we should just vote on this.
The only one that's missing their opinion is obviously Miranda, which is why the ticket sales got tabled, is to hear your opinion this round too. But
All right, we have a motion. We have a second?
And can I just clarify
Sure.
what it is you're gonna be voting on? Is it to establish an indoor track team for the 2019-20 winter season?
Correct.
Or is there any other language that you'd want added?
That would be it.
So Graydon made that motion, Barney seconded it.
Those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Abstain?
Did you vote? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I said in
Against?
opposition.
Opposition?
Opposition.
That did not pass.
Did not pass. Okay, that did not pass.
Is there opportunity for public comment?
No, not at this time.
And I gotta say, that was one of the hardest votes I've ever, around this
The
table.
presentation was good.
I
we
just
will-
say something about the salaries. I think there are different steps, and first step made 1,900, and volunteers made, or assistants made 1,400, so it's a little bit lower.
Not even, it was 1,200.
So we were nowhere near a $12,000 figure.
No,
No, that's not true. Mr. Thomas had the other contract that would go into effect probably.
And earlier was stated that bus transportation does not include
Okay.
sectionals, but it did include sectionals in the report that I coached.
Okay.
I struggle with an
I'm sorry,
opposition vote
I'm
when,
sorry.
when you're, have aspiring athletes wanting to improve their skill set. It's just really unfortunate.
And with so many athletes wanting to do so,
Right.
there's not.
We are up to administrative remarks.
So, I want to start by just simply saying to the board that I did mention earlier that the salaries could be a little bit wrong, but I don't think they're way wrong. I'm only saying that because we have not yet received approval from WTA on a proposal that is sitting there right now and awaiting a vote. My anticipation is that they are going to approve that, but they have not yet ratified, and I cannot tell you, I'm not divulging all of that information. I could share some of that as part of negotiations in the executive session, but I can't divulge that out there right now. But there is a new schedule that's in place, and I can share that proposal with you. But I haven't got an approval from, we haven't got a ratification vote yet from WTA. That makes that very difficult for me to share that information with you in this forum right now. But I would do that in executive if under negotiations issue. So I just want to, I've got my supervisors here, and we usually go to the supervisors first, so let's do that, okay, don't mind. So, Trace or John, whoever?
It's all yours. Transportation wise, we're just getting geared up for winter. We had our meeting with the highway superintendents a couple weeks ago. Not well, we talked about the things that we have to do, how we're in contact and stuff like that. Last year, we missed a meeting, like we'd said before, because all the stuff that was going on at the beginning of the year. But we had a good meeting, and everyone's on the same page. Met a new person possibly that could be taken over in Hamden after tonight's vote. We'll see. But a very nice gentleman that looks like he'll work well with us also. We had our bus driver recognition a week later. There was quite a few of us there. Some didn't come. But a very good turnout. I was glad to see as many people there. Mr. Bartlett come over with his brass ensemble and had some music for us. It was really a good time. We had a lot of drivers there. We moved our time a little bit later so we can get our BOCES and our special needs bus driver and monitors back so we can include them. In past years, they've always missed it. But it was good. We had the bus company there, and again, it was a really, really good time. And if anybody goes on the website and sees the picture as to the people there, it was really good. Rosie Green, of course, every year has her little poem that she reads and does, and it was really good. Other than that, we're just getting ready for winter. I was talking with Paul. We talked about, we agreed or approved a new driver that had all his credentials. But then, there's word that I'm going to lose one in the spring. So here we go. We're staying at the line. One step over, one step back. But other than that, I think everything else is going well.
Years of service. I think it was mentioned at the bus driver appreciation. There was one driver there that had 40 or 30 some years.
She's in her 30s.
30 years.
Well into the 30s. But I mean, that's honestly, it's not uncommon for what I've had for drivers in the past. There have been drivers there, long before I got there and stayed for a long time, but then did retire with, high 20s, 30s, 40 years is just not uncommon for our situation here. So I wish I had some of them back so I had extras, because a lot of them had retired and then come back as subs and then fully retired after that. It's tough.
Carl as well, right?
Yeah.
Isn't he like 40-some years?
Yeah, him and his wife was.
All right, we're the O&M department, of course, we're gearing up for winter. We've got things in pretty good shape and we're ready for the heating season and the snow plowing season and ice removal and whatever else we have to put up with. Of course, the winter sports and activity, the indoors are starting to gear up now and we're getting prepared for that. And it's already, a lot of it started. And we're in good shape. On the 13th to 16th of October, I attended the School Facilities Management Conference in Saratoga. I just want to give a little brief overview. That's the agenda. I wish I'd have brought more home with me so you could all have taken one. It's very, very good conference. I've been to it several times now. Nice learning experience. We have way over 200 vendors there. Ranging from Hilliard, Train, Cisco, the lock companies, like Oak, and the security companies, Hill and Marks, and a lot of the turf companies also come there. And it takes you basically takes 2 days to get through it and be able to talk to everybody and get a good grasp of what the products they have. And then at our workshops, I went to roofing technology and restoration options workshop, which kind of plays into what we're doing. Also, Roseanne Groff was there, the head of SCD the facilities planning. And she gave all the SED updates. We discussed a lot of Department of Labor inspections. We had lead testing, asbestos inspections, and things like that. Then I went to an energy performance contracting class, which was about 2.5 hours. And you really pick up a lot, and we're really going in the right direction. Everything that we have done so far as a facilities committee and that you have done as a board, is just right in line with everything. I went to a capital projects workshop. It was actually I went to that one twice because it was so interesting. It was capital projects workshop of what went wrong in your capital project. And there was so much information packed into this workshop that I actually went the next day in the morning part of that session. So, a lot more people have a lot more to say about what goes wrong instead of what goes right, And so I guess that's about it. And as I say, we're geared up. We're ready for winter and ready for indoor activities. And I think we got things pretty well caught up in the building. Of course, it's just ongoing, So, all right.
Thank you.
Rick?
I guess I'll start with safety. We had a safety meeting this past week. Arnie showed up. We had quite a few people were missing this week, but we still had probably 7 or 8 people. We've met all of our drill requirements for both Townsend and the high school. So you're supposed to have a total of 8 drills in total, 6 evacuations, and then 2 lockdowns. Or 8 drills in total. They can be split up anyway. For the year, you need 8 evacuations and 4 lockdowns. So both Townsend and the high school, we've met that criteria. We do both plan on having 1 more lockdown before December 31st. We've also like to thank Bill over at Townsend and Millard here. We have the outdoor signs installed at the entryways, Townsend the front and back. Here we have them at the middle school and high school. So anytime there's a fire alarm, you'll see the fire alarm message. Any of the emergency notifications come over those signs now. And we are still working on the plan to put the strobes around the corners and the exteriors of the building. That's pretty much it for safety. We've been live streaming a lot of sports. Ron Golly just did the exciting volleyball game. I think it was last night where we won 3-2 over Delhi. And we rolled out a new camera for football. It's an auto tracking camera. And actually Ian was there donating his time when we were setting it up, and he wants to use it for track and field come spring. But what Justin Preston did was he talked to one of the referees that's on the defensive side of the ball, and he wore a wristband. And then we set the camera up on the top of the booth, and it actually auto zooms in and out, and it tracks that wristband. And it worked phenomenally. It was actually kind of a gimmick purchase, which maybe this will work. And it was fantastic, 1080p quality, and it was auto zooming. The only thing that was bad about it was during kickoffs, the one referee that we had the wristband on went down to the end zone. So we missed kickoffs for that game. So for the next game, we actually put 2 cameras into effect with an HDMI switcher, and Justin Preston was there donating his time doing the camera work, or switch work, and he pressed the switch button to switch over to camera 1, which zoomed into the center of the field for kickoffs. And then once the kickoff was done, he clicked the clicker, and it went back to the auto tracking feature for the rest of the football game. And actually, it was phenomenal. It looked great.
Well, you think how far that's come, because when you first started it, remember they forgot to turn it
Yeah,
sometimes.
so 2 years ago, we'd have to text Ron Golly, live chat and say, hey, move the camera. And now the camera does it by itself. So, and plus we have the scoreboard overlay and all of that. So the live streaming is just, honestly, it's really spiraled into an amazing feature for the school district. And the quality of it is top notch. So we have had a lot of requests to do the live streaming for away games, and it's just, for what we do, it's just not possible. You need internet power. We wouldn't have the scoreboard overlay. There's so many things behind the scenes that you guys don't see that goes to that. We just, I know you can pick up a phone and live stream it to YouTube. That's not what we're doing, so it's fun to watch it grow. That's pretty much it.
So are you gonna be able to use that camera inside the school too, like in the gym?
It actually functions off a GPS signal. So they're supposed to be coming out with a new device that hooks onto that camera, which enables it inside a school, inside a building. So if that does come out this year, we'll be adding that to the basketball games and whatever other sports we do inside. We would like to use it for track and other sports in other seasons as well.
So like with the baseball and the soccer and with the other outdoor sports, will that be able to do those, or has it gotta have the height of the
Soccer
stairs?
is, you take the kid out, it's gonna go to the bench. So, in baseball, there's never one person, you wouldn't get the full view of the game. So football is kind of neat because there's always one referee that's right on the defensive side of the ball. You're usually always going that way, pushing the ball towards that end zone. So it worked out well, except for those kickoffs, which is why we added that second camera. But it's good stuff.
In technology, as we attended the conference, there's vendors that have everything and anything you can think of. And one of the things that stand out is the security device that goes on classroom doors. And did you bring it?
Yeah, I wanna give this to you before we're done tonight.
I thought they demonstrated that, and that was quite interesting how that worked.
I don't know if you've seen that.
It was just something that hung in the classroom. They slid it over the door, pushed it down, and then the door could not be opened. But also, with the, in the news media, you're hearing about vaping and the dangers to, anybody's lungs, not just young students' lungs, but these devices that they had that pick up, just vaping. It picks up everything else, but it can sense a vape, in a bathroom or something, and then it automatically alerts you. It would be on a computer or your phone or something, and it would send off an alarm type thing. I was quite impressed by that. And then also, if a fight broke out, they demonstrated like loud noises and and someone could get to that location, and right down to the exact location.
Yep.
Upstairs, downstairs, female, male bathroom, whatever.
I don't want to give away too much information. Mr. Thomas is aware of some changes we have been making in terms of trying to prevent vaping. And a few of us do get alerts and notifications when things are going on, and we have been actively
technology. It's amazing.
Moving forward in the progression of preventing vaping in the school. We just don't want to give away too much.
Great. Thank you.
So Tracy mentioned that we met with all of the town supervisors, or as many that could attend, or highway supervisors, as far as inclement weather. We also, just a couple days ago, and Tracy was part of this, also met with all of our new administrative staff too, because they also assist in when we're going to a delay or a closing. They have duties that they have to perform as well. And so we talked about what that's going to look like and maybe some possible stumbling blocks. Corey was part of that as well. So hopefully we're all well-versed and we'll see how the first time goes and that sort of thing. Hopefully it won't be this Thursday or Friday, but we'll see. I understand that there are rumors out there that there could be some strange weather, and we'll hope it's not that early in the season as yet. But I just want you to know that that group has come together with that. I had my community group meeting today. Arnie was there, Marilyn was there, and we talked about a number of things. But it was an interesting meeting in as much as we really had some, I think, some great conversation going back and forth on doing some things for the community down the line, and perhaps some things that we can come together as different community groups. It was, I can't be specific about things because we didn't really create a program, but I mean the type of conversation that was going on, I think might lead to some interesting things that could involve the school and some other groups in the community going forward. And it was a real nice conversation. As I said, we'll see how it goes. Info guide is done and should be at the printers and should be coming out soon. And then I just also wanted to add on to what Marilyn mentioned about some of the curriculum things that, I appreciate very much some of the ideas that Jane has, but I also have to say that we have a real hard workforce here, and a lot of the things that she is pushing forward with are things that have been developed through several meetings with building teams and some meetings with some other professionals at the BOCES, our links committee over the course of the summer, which was a teacher / administrative team, and all those folks really come together and start to formulate some of those approaches and where some of our priorities need to be, or where those groups feel that things need to be, and literacy is very important to all of us, and we have made some great strides with that in the past year, and we still have a long way to go. Because we are learning some new things as we go forward too, with respect to some of the research that's out there, and believe it or not, it is possible to pick up on reading deficits that students have, literacy deficits that they have. It is possible to pick up on them in a very short period of time, in a very short assessment period, if you know what you're looking for. And that's part of the key to this whole process, is to know what you're looking for. And we expect that as educators, we all know all of those pieces, and we do know a lot of them. But as times change, processes change, research gives us more information, and that helps feed us with new ways of forming strategies to attack some of these issues. And that's part of what we're going through now. All the good information that folks have had, we're adding to that, and we're supplementing that with newer information so that we can attack these issues in a much more meaningful and productive way, and to get better results out of our students. So, my hat is off to not only the committee and the other committees that have worked on this stuff, but the rest of the staff that is really in the trenches doing all of this work. And it's work that we're trying to extend. One of the comments or one of the pieces of data that we shared was that we had some students in some of the higher grades that still have some reading deficits, and the programs that we're trying to put in place right now are also addressing how to help students at the higher grades who have gone up through and still have some of those deficits, how to continue to help some of those students as well. So the notion of continuous improvement, the notion of we're never really done, and not only us as teachers, but us as adults too, that we are never really done, and there's always something better that we can strive for. So we're working in those directions. So with that said, I will request a short executive session to discuss a potential litigation and secure employee.
All right, do we have a motion to go into executive session?
Move it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. Need to get these signed.